everyone, and welcome to one more episode of In the Lead. In the Lead, as you know, presents the stories of extraordinary leaders who speak about their own leadership journeys, their perspectives, their views, their philosophies, their trials, their tribulations, their failure stories, and also their coaching moments. In the Lead is a great opportunity, a great platform for you to be able to define your own leadership. In the Lead is meant to democratize leadership knowledge. So make the most of In the Lead. Today on In the Lead, we present the very formidable, the very outstanding Managing Director and CEO of Ashok Leyland, Vipin Sondhi. Do remember to share, like, and subscribe this episode of In the Lead. Presenting Vipin Sondhi on In the Lead. Vipin Sondhi is an alumnus of IIT Delhi and IIM Ahmedabad and has more than 3 decades of experience in manufacturing and the engineering sectors. He is currently the MD CEO of Ashok Leyland, the 4th largest manufacturer of buses in the world and ranked among the top 10 manufacturers of trucks globally. Vipin was earlier the Managing Director and CEO of JCB India and started his career with companies like Tata Steel and Shriram Honda. Vipin has a strong, proven track record as a leader and is a passionate and hands-on professional. He is known to drive performance working seamlessly with all key stakeholders and has a formidable reputation for driving growth and technology transitions within organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting Vipin Sondhi, Managing Director and CEO, Ashok Leyland, on In the Lead. Welcome, Vipin. We're really delighted to have you on the show. It is an absolute privilege to be able to host you. Before that, I'm going to just pass over to you. How does it feel to be on the show?
Well, Sujaya, and if I might call you that, thank you very much for having me. This is a privilege for me to have been invited and a privilege for me to participate in the show, and a very, very good day to all the participants, and thank you for tuning in. Back to you, Sujaya. I look forward to this interaction with you.
Right. So I'm going to start right at the start. You took over as Managing Director and CEO of Ashok Leyland just a little before the pandemic. I mean, these have been such unusual times of upheavals. Tell us a bit about what it means to be able to lead an organization in such extraordinary times.
Well, thank you, Sujaya. It's a great question first up, really. Ashok Leyland is a great organization with a legacy of accomplishments over 70 years, and it's a great honor to lead this enterprise. The pandemic, of course, as we all know, completely disrupted operations in a way that none of us could have imagined. And really, it's the first time in my career that health has been the primary reason for an economic slowdown, unlike in the past when it was financial or policy-driven. The key priorities during the pandemic were to ensure wellness, which is health and safety of our employees, which are the lifeline of our organization. But we ensured that there was clear and constant communication, not only with the employees, which was as empathetic as possible, as compassionate as possible, but with all stakeholders. There were our drivers who drive our trucks, there were dealers, there's the government, which was every day issuing notifications to the best of their knowledge. There were our vendor partners. So the entire ecosystem was important that we were engaged with. And then technology adoption. The first, of course, all of us did was adopt technology to work from home, but we had to ensure technology adoption to drive business continuity. We started then looking at processes and costs to drive efficiency, improve bottom line, while ensuring that we protect the very core of Ashok Leyland. What are the leadership insights? I think many, as we learned. One, and the most important, was empathy. And empathy doesn't always mean agreement. Empathy, I think, means striving to understand the other's point of view. Right. And do your best and strive to do that. And there may be a disagreement, but at least one has made that effort. Right. Unwavering focus on the vision. It was important that there would be complete alignment to the vision that we have to be the top 10 in global commercial vehicle manufacturers. There were a lot of questions. Does the vision change? The vision will not change. The vision remains steadfast. It was important that we do scenario planning because nobody knew when and how the pandemic would, I wouldn't say end, it hasn't ended, but the way it would phase itself out. And therefore, speed over precision was important given the era of incomplete information. Remaining curious, which is adaptive intelligence, which is seeking inputs from as many people as possible, because in any case, even in a normal scenario, nobody has all the information. In the pandemic scenario, we would try to seek as much information as was possible. Within that, accelerating digital adoption. Digital was driving at 2x, it was now driving itself at 5x. Ensuring that teamwork and collaboration remains the mainstay over individual contribution, even when we were working virtually, and now even more so. Transition to a data-driven organization, the need for dexterity, and keeping pace with future technology. Sustainability is more relevant and pertinent than ever. We've realized that are we giving back to nature, to society, more than we are taking from Mother Nature? I think this particular, let's say, last 18 months has driven that point more emphatically than ever. And focusing and making sure that the stakeholders, the investors, the employees, the partners, everybody in some way is working at sustainability, or at least the organization is sending that message out. And finally, if I might say, keeping customer at the heart of everything we do. At the end of the day, all decisions had to relate to one of the most, if not the most important stakeholder, the customer.
Super stuff. So, these have been, these times have been accelerators of change. You yourself mentioned that in your response. So accelerators of change, of the future of work. It's also been the accelerators of Industry 4.0. And especially because you're in such a relevant manufacturing space, I'm very interested to know, what does it really mean to be a smart industrial leader? So, everyone talks about Industry 4.0 or smart industrial as it has been adopted within the manufacturing space. But this whole space of, acceleration in the space of technology and customer and the employee and the individual in the organization. Tell us a bit more about what does it mean to be a smart industrial leader?
Sujaya, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, machine learning, they're going to drive innovation on the shop floor in the fourth industrial revolution, as you've asked. And going forward, we will witness enhanced interactions between man, woman, and machines. I don't want to be gender insensitive, but both people and machines. I think I put it as people and machines. So connecting people and systems to create a dynamic, value-added link across the chain to optimize processes, consumption, resources, which are always short of supply and costs. In other words, Industry 4.0 is not about robotics. It is about leadership, and smart leadership, therefore, would be to drive meaningful collaboration, I think, between people and machines through data. So in my opinion, being a leader in today's manufacturing space, what you term as a smart industrial leader, entails 5 elements. 1, understanding that human growth is essential to business growth. That means technology is a tool to augment and elevate the performance of an individual rather than replace the individual. It worries us that jobs will be lost. We must actually ensure jobs are created. The second, navigating through complex supply chain challenges through collaborative structures. It's going to be a lot about partnership. It's going to be a lot about collaboration. The third, using data to drive transformation. Whether it is cameras with image processing on the shop floor or machines talking to one another through any form of digital technology. Fourth, working towards lean manufacturing by eliminating waste and delivering sustainable value to the customers. Now, it's probably easier than earlier. And five, encouraging several small changes that eventually lead to significant improvements. I'm a great believer that if you do small changes with rapidity, you can actually lead to a big improvement, which is not always discontinuous.
Right.
So technology tools are important, but understanding problems at a human level and blending tech and human capabilities to coming up with meaningful solutions with people at the heart of it is what will strike a chord in the new manufacturing environment of Industry 4.0.
Right, so well said, and thank you for very comprehensive responses to these questions. I'm sure this is going to be like a masterclass for people who are actually watching this show today. So I'm going to move on, Vipin, to talk to you about your own leadership journey. You've worked for one iconic organization after another, and you've had very interesting experiences across all these organizations. What is your quintessence belief around leadership at the end of having worked through so many organizations? But give us your sort of insight or leadership philosophy, others to be able to understand these beliefs or principles that you finally arrived at after a very illustrious career that has.
Sujaya, it's a tough one, and I've been very fortunate to have been associated with iconic brands and companies, as you've put it, with the deep legacy and unparalleled values. So, and I've also had the privilege to work with iconic leaders as well. So if I might just put it in a few parts, one is obsessing with the customer while respecting competition. Sometimes we obsess too much with competition. I think we've got to obsess with the customer and respect competition. Customer engagement through the lifetime of the customer, not one-off. We need to design frugally, and frugal doesn't mean cheap. Frugal means value. The second is to do digital, think digital, but it must be not for the sake of digital, but the customer at the heart of it. And the third within this obsession is moving towards a data-driven organization to creating meaningful solutions, as I've mentioned before. The second, as a management guru had said, fold the future in, which means that don't merely extrapolate the current and the past, which will give you some form of linear growth. Organizations need to look for disruptive growth, and therefore you've got to fold the future in and redraw the current activities to be able to achieve that accelerated goal. And if possible, fail, but fail fast so that you can succeed even faster. Reversible decisions, in my belief, do not need extensive study. So decisions that can either be reversed or changed as you go along can keep moving on. It is those irreversible decisions that need more study. And then in any case, some risk will have to be taken. The third is to drive efficiency into processes continually. Productivity is imperative to sustain wealth creation. So when often we are asked, how do you increase the productivity of a nation? By building infrastructure. Sujaya, you and I can not have to fight every day with water, electricity, roads. Our productivity as a nation would go up automatically.
Yeah, so agree.
The West doesn't have the advantage. The West already has that. How do they increase their productivity? We can do ours by building infrastructure. The second is the power of Shunya, which is the power of zero. which is zero defect, zero wastage, zero congestion, zero accidents, zero downtime, zero debt. Bankers won't like it. And zero imports. Now, I'm not saying zero imports is the right thing to do. No, we shouldn't have that. We should be part of the global supply chain. But where you can add value in your own country, where you can set up a manufacturing base in your own country, we must do that.
Right.
The next is teamwork over individual brilliance. I often say that teams create far higher organization impact and positive energy than do individual contributors. Now, this is not across the board, but it applies in most areas. And therefore, you create high-powered leadership teams. It's important to critique. It's important to co-create. It's important to communicate. It's important to celebrate. And all of this is really inspiration. The third is to create diverse teams. We must have gender balance in teams so that perspectives are diverse. We must have ethnic balance in teams so that people with different experiences come in, different age groups. It's important to have diverse teams. And then a culture of innovation, you mentioned it, though we don't do it well enough, is how do you actually reward failure in the context of innovation? I don't have an answer, but I wish we could do that better. We must understand that high performance is driven by several factors. One is that experts lead experts. There's always a question, should a general person lead experts or should an expert lead an expert? And I think the important is first priority expert leading experts, provided this expert has the power or the ability to collaborate across the organization. That is very important. But if one gets stuck in one domain, then you have a challenge. Right. And experts plus curiosity then is adaptive intelligence. Then you really adapt. Seeking a viewpoint, asking questions, questioning the status quo, challenging assumptions, and therefore good leaders must be good listeners, must encourage different points of view, and don't have to speak the most, actually should speak the least, but round up and summarize and give direction. Back to you.
Right. So, I must say, again, very, very comprehensive response. It came from the heart because you're basically describing your own principles and your own philosophies as a leader. I want to just go back to the part where you spoke about innovation. And I'm glad that, you came back to it to talk about the failing fast kind of culture being a prerequisite to any form of innovation. I wanted to just take this back to this whole challenge of psychological safety that we almost have as a malaise across organizations where people don't speak up. And somewhere down the line, across the last 18 months, I think this fear of speaking up has just gotten worse across organizations. So I'm talking about voice, basically employee voice as a prerequisite for innovation and the role the leader plays in being able to kind of harness this voice. So I want to talk to you a bit about that, and especially about, we talk about failing fast and failing furiously before you actually succeed and make all your mistakes so that you can start creating good work. And yet organizations really struggle with being able to really have tolerance for failure. So tell us a bit about this, because you spoke about this as a leadership philosophy. This would mean you also have a very formidable reputation for high performance. So tell me how you combine the two, which is failure and high performance.
No, I don't think we do the failure part as well as one might, but it's extremely important because if you don't fail, you don't learn. So it's very, very important, one, to ensure that anybody who fails is given an opportunity if that failure is genuine and the failure has taken place because the person has tried. In fact, the bigger issue is if you don't try. We must try. Every employee must try. Now, the question is, if the employee fails, how do you deal with it? Because then there is the whole issue of the psyche. And that's when the leader comes in, either with a pat on the back Or if it has been a significant program, then actually reward it. Reward it in public. But it's always important to take a person or a team in hand, talk to them, counsel them if they feel that they haven't met their targets, and then raise the bar, give them the tools, find out what were the reasons, but ensure that this team then will deliver much, much more because one has had faith in them. One has ensured that there is belief. And if one believes, then one does. So absolutely no doubt about it. We must ensure that we take care of people who try, may not succeed, but give them one more opportunity, two more opportunities, as long as the type of failure is different. If it's the same, then you have another problem to deal with.
Right.
But not trying is a big hassle, yeah.
Right. Great stuff. You've had a remarkable career, Vipin, spanning over 3 decades. Tell us on hindsight, what would be your advice to the younger Vipin Sondhi?
So since you said 3 decades, you kind of position me as somebody who's been around a long, long time. Our parents were fairly, I wouldn't say, general terms, I'm not talking of mine.
Yeah.
Generally, we had 3 or 4 options. Become an engineer, become a doctor, become, whatever, accountancy or whatever. I would say, with the options open now, follow your passion. Or because of the option, and these options are career opportunities by themselves. So it is important that young people today follow their passion. The second, very clearly, I know we were told, observe in meetings, don't speak up. When you're in meetings with the managing director, the chairman, etc. I think that time is long gone, and I would encourage all young people to challenge their seniors constructively, with respect, but challenge them, because we need to change, and young people bring in a lot of perspectives. The third, again, where we were not always encouraged to ask questions, the curiosity of our educational system, as we know, rather the lack of encouraging curiosity in our education system is remarkable. You almost have to study by rote, we all know that. I think we must be encouraging our colleagues or younger people to ask why at least 5 times. Because you need to do that to arrive at the root of any issue that you have at hand, and do not feel diffident about it. The fourth is to remain healthy, exercise regularly throughout your life. Now, this I'm definitely telling a younger Vipin Sondhi because I don't do it. But it's extremely important that it be part of the DNA, which it was in mine when I was young and then gradually slipped out, but exercise regularly throughout your life. And fifth, spend time with extended family and friends in laughter, in joy, in sorrow, but spend time with extended family and friends. That time will never come back. It's definitely an advice that I would give to myself.
Lovely, super. So lovely tips to learn early in the game for all the students and young professionals who are really watching this show and listening to you. I'm going to move this on to talk about, you spoke about a bit about, your younger self, and I'm just reminded of, the various opportunities someone like you would have had of being able to receive basically coaching advice or career advice or mentoring from very distinctive people. What out of these coaching moments, or perhaps a moment of failure where someone gave you feedback, or perhaps career advice that was given by someone who you regarded, as your mentor or coach. Tell us a bit about this. There could be two or three pieces, or perhaps more, that you really hold to heart even today, and you kind of value it and follow it till date. So give us the value of that. Some advice. Perhaps a coaching moment that you've experienced, earlier in your career.
Sujaya, I don't know whether I've got advice as in advice, but I've had the privilege of observing iconic leaders up close very early. And each of them actually, from there, I think I learned that a leader's success lies in the success of his or her team. This came out again and again and again. And these were iconic leaders of their time, at that time. And teams create a multitude impact than do individual achievers. I've said it before, not in all contexts, but certainly in most contexts. And I've had the privilege of being part of some great teams. And therefore, I hope I've been able to impart to them the importance of teamwork. So I'll just take that one aspect, teamwork. It's critical to keep the team motivated and aligned to a singular purpose. Leaders must ensure that it's simple and collaborative. And what do I mean by simplicity? Not a great one for jargon, because the last man on the shop floor must know and understand why his or her job is the most important job in the world. Why his or her workstation can, if it's world-class, you can have a world-class product. Otherwise, that might be the reason for some customer in some other part of the world getting impacted. Always saying what you mean, meaning what you say. I know it's cliched, but it helps to build trust. It goes a long way in maintaining cohesion. And very often, I've said, I don't know. I don't have the answer. When I have the answer, I'll come back to you, or I'll try and find the answer. But hopefully never have said something which evaded or was wrongly responded to. And then finally, I think it's important that leaders in their own way, when you talked about advice, where I was differing from is there was never any direct feedback. It was coaching by observation. It was mentoring subconsciously. Right. That was the way it was done at that time. There weren't many formal performance appraisal reports and all that. It was all done by observation, and that's the way it was done. And I think while all formal performance appraisals, etc., are important because something has to be recorded, but it's a lot by example. It's a lot by making sure that all of us live in ivory towers, and we must be seen to be and doing the right thing, so that young people can imbibe.
Right, and I'm so glad you're talking about role modeling, because in so many ways, the genesis of the show is to be able to create those role models for people who don't have access to be able to work with people like yourself, Vipin. So I'm so glad you're talking about the power of imbibing sanskars by simply just watching people around you. And that basically leadership is also something that you basically imbibe from people in places of authority, whether in your personal life or your professional life. So thank you for articulating that. Having said that, just a question, do you still believe that, notwithstanding this power of observing and basically, role modeling being the most powerful impact that a leader can actually create, do you still believe conversations are important? So tell us a bit about that, conversations or even feedback or coaching. I mean, how do you see that fit in? Because, there is a huge momentum around wanting leaders to speak more, converse more, connect more. So tell us a bit about that.
No, 100%. I just said that, we didn't have the advantage very often of these formal processes.
Yeah.
I think conversations are so important. And in these times, I think even more so. Because the stresses, strains, the diversity of impact is so huge. It is psychological as well. So it is extremely important that we have conversations with people who are professionally qualified within the organization, but equally important, those who are outside the organization, who specialize and ensure that whether it's mentoring, coaching, but a lot of it is to also try and understand from a psychological standpoint, what are the challenges that today's generation faces. And I think we must take that opportunity. There is every advantage in taking that opportunity. It can never be a disadvantage because with every conversation, one learns. Learning is through conversation. Learning is, of course, through observation, but learning is through conversation. Learning is through sharing of ideas. And we have that advantage today of having people who are professionally qualified to provide exactly that. Right. So I would say it is now more difficult to learn by observation as role models. It is so important to supplement it, buttress it with people who are professionally qualified to provide it.
Right. Right, lovely. I think it's been absolutely wonderful speaking to you, but I want to not let you go without one last question, Vipin, which is around a lot of our viewers are entrepreneurs. They lead small and medium-sized organizations. Many of them are in the manufacturing space. Give them, I want you to leave them with some advice, some words of perhaps encouragement and hope. What would you like to say to the entrepreneur, to the SME community, especially the way we are poised right now in the middle of a pandemic, and we don't know the upper end of this pandemic at this point. Many of them have been, adversely impacted. Some of them were poised to be able to perhaps recover faster. But I think it would be absolutely inspiring to hear something from you, especially for the entrepreneurs and the SMEs who are listening to the show.
Sujaya, I have the greatest respect for SMEs and entrepreneurs because it is such a difficult environment because our ecosystem often doesn't support SMEs and entrepreneurs. Yes, now startups are being supported, but there's a whole host of SMEs and entrepreneurs who have to actually fight with the infrastructure. Fight with all the rules and regulations that are there instead of just focusing on their product or service and the customer. So the greatest respect for them for having started out anyway. Now, it's extremely important that whatever one does, even if it is manufacturing a safety pin, and I think a safety pin is important, it must be world-class quality. And for that, you have to have process and product excellence. The smallest item which others may consider as insignificant should be the most important for yourself. And it should be respected. So world-class quality is extremely important. We have to be able to ensure that cash, for entrepreneurs, cash is king. Books or accounting books don't matter. At the end of the day, balance your cash at the end of every day, every week, every month. If you can create within your small community a diverse force of men and women, so I'm not talking of recruiting from all over the country, that's not necessary, but in your small space, larger space, if you can create a diverse and inclusive workforce, that will benefit the organization tremendously. Fourth, you have to have a goal. You have to have a vision. And it doesn't have to be the world's largest vision. It can be very focused, can be very localized, but there must be a vision so that it binds people together. The people in your organization, even if they're 50 or they're 100, must know what is it at the end of the day that they're working for at the end of the day. And I think often we've seen that I might just come in the morning and do a small bit of work, repetitive work, and go back. But the entrepreneur or the leader has to make sure that that person feels that his or her job is the most important in the world, and therefore give that meaning to that work. And one way to give meaning is the impact it would have on the customer should there be an error. The impact on the customer, and then you realize, wow, even I make a difference to the customer. So just some thoughts, yeah. But ultimately, what's very important is, for me, the small and medium industries are actually the base of any industrial society. The large companies add some value, but the bulk of the work, the bulk of the employment, the bulk of what value is added by the small and medium industries. And we have to ensure that they thrive. And which is why my highest regard and respect for them, because the environment doesn't support it all the time.
Thank you. So well said, because you your response has been so comprehensive, and I love the sort of ideas you're leaving with them on vision and on valuing the talent that they have within the organization, and building diversity within their communities, and so on. And they are indeed sort of indispensable and incredible in terms of what it is that they are contributing to society. So I think with that, I have to say, Vipin, this has been a wonderful conversation. We could easily go on and talk for another couple of hours, because your rich experience, insights, perspectives, so much from the heart. Thank you very much for making this such a meaningful conversation on In the Lead, and thank you for agreeing to find the time to do this for us. So thank you, Vipin, for featuring on In the Lead.
Sujaya, thank you very much for inviting me. It's been my privilege, and thank you for asking such incisive questions. I had to really dig deep to try and find some answers, but if they are of some use or value, I'll feel very happy about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vipin. So, ladies and gentlemen, the very remarkable, the very incredible Vipin Sondhi on In the Lead. Remember to like, share, and subscribe this episode of In the Lead. So bye, and see you at the next episode of In the Lead. Stay tuned.